back in the day when Smedley Butler was going through his stuff, the billionaires came to him and he blew the whistle on them. I want to know who the billionaires are that was funding this stuff. You know, they're getting information from, you know, Ginni Thomas. You know, Clarence was probably telling her what was going on and stuff like that. But who was the guys who was paying the bills? That's who they got to get at.
It's a good question. It's a good question. By the way, the election was on November 3rd in 2020. But I think that, you know, I think that's an excellent question, in fact. And I would like to know too. We know, you know, like you said, Ginni Thomas and some friends of hers, you know, got some buses there. I mean, I just, you know, it's there is so much that we don't know. The investigation so far, Rick, in my mind, has raised more questions than answers. And I'm hopeful that the January 6th committee's report, when it comes out, will provide us with some answers to those questions. But I have a feeling, you know, that it's going to be a long, long time before we figure this out. Rachel Maddow's podcast, this Ultra podcast, which if you haven't listened to it, is really worth checking out. She goes back to 1940. You know, in the 1930s, there were a bunch of members of Congress who were literally taking money from Hitler and giving speeches on the floor of the House that were written by Hitler's agents. And when they tried to prosecute these people in 1940, or I guess it was post 1940, this must have been, you know, after World War II, President Harry Truman stopped the prosecution. I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast again to get the exact timeline, but basically they shut down this prosecution. They didn't want to embarrass these members of Congress, and most of this was being driven by one senator who'd been taking money from Hitler and pushing Hitler's propaganda. Are we seeing that again? Are we seeing a repeat of this?